is a new trend. So many people suffering from poor sleep. Now, for a normal person, that's sleeping 8 hours and getting the recovery, an average sleep score should be 50%. So long as I'm getting my 8 hours, I must be okay. Actually, that's not the information at all. You're heading into chronic disease. Was blissfully unaware. Because who is? What's going on in sleep that isn't going on in a guided meditation? Voila. If she's got an emotional memory image in her sleep, so she's waking up and her body is inflamed. Change is only that moment away. Are you prepared to live a conscious life? Are you prepared to break that trance and do something about it?
Today's guest is a true pioneer at the crossroads of neuroscience, quantum physics, and human communication. And for over 30 years, he has been redefining the way we understand the mind and body. He's uncovered the hidden language of non-verbal communication, biofield, and the subconscious mind. And through decades of research, he has designed and built revolutionary and natural ways to explain and overcome some of the most common mental and bodily ailments. He's the author of groundbreaking books like The Saboteur Within, Kids, Now They Come With a Manual, The Wizard of Woz, The Guide to Behavioural Time Management, and If Love Were Jelly Beans in a Jar. An innovator in split-second unlearning, a sleep restoration specialist, and a fearless explorer of the mind's deepest terrains. Welcome, Matt Hudson. Are you struggling at the moment with your health, fitness and wellness? Are you feeling under immense pressure, stress, anxiety? Are you waking up with that dread? You've got lots of tasks, lots of projects you want to do, and on the surface you're feeling very excited about it, but for some reason there is still this dread and this anxiety. Or perhaps with your health and wellness, you've got chronic pain and it's not just been there for a few days or weeks, it's been there for months, perhaps it's been there for years, but now it's inflamed, it's getting worse, and it's now affecting things like your sleep, your work, your performance, perhaps even your relationships, and you don't know what to do about it. Because even though on the surface you're taking all the practical steps, you're going to see the doctor, the physio, the trainer, the massage therapist, maybe you're having MRIs, maybe you're doing the breath work, the meditation, but for some reason there isn't a shift and you're not able to get past this huge block or barrier that you can't seem to understand why it's there, because it's completely out of character. After all, you're normally a proactive, positive, high-performing person, but for now you are really struggling to get that motivation and that drive that you normally have, and you want to get that back, especially when it comes to your health and fitness, because being in a state of chronic pain is no fun. Well, this is why I developed Mind Drive. Mind Drive is your solution to overcoming chronic pain, getting rid of those mental blocks, those mental barriers that are holding you back, and being able to take that step forward into a better quality of life and get back to the life that you desire, that performance, that proactivity, that productivity, enjoying every aspect of your life in work, relationships, health and fitness, and feel really at your peak, really energized. Well, I have developed a free guide for you to get you started on this journey to better health, better fitness, so you can actually elevate your mind, heal your body, and reclaim your life. Now, in this guide, it's going to show you what the reasons are, the causes perhaps that you're feeling very stuck and you're not able to move forward. It's going to show you how perhaps on this occasion the reasons those traditional methods are not working. And we're also going to give you some inspiring stories and some practical steps that you can follow to help get you started on this journey to better health and a better life, the life that you desire. So all you have to do is completely free guide. All you have to do is click the link in the description, or you can head over to the website at teamclinicservices.com and you can download it for there. But for now, I want to thank you and I look forward to hearing your comments, your thoughts. But for now, back to this episode in our Unleash Your Inner Athlete series. Have a great day. Hello and welcome back to this episode of Unleash Your Inner Athlete. Now, we all know sleep is important, but it's more than just about getting rest. Sleep can actually negatively or positively affect your health and well-being and how you respond in the world around you. It's really important, not just for physical fitness, for your immune system. And so many people, a third of people are not getting enough sleep. They're actually getting less than 7 hours. And this, without them realizing, is really impacting their health and wellness and their performance, and can put them at higher risk of things like heart disease, diabetes, stress, depression, anxiety, and all these things. So here with me today to discuss all of this and share his groundbreaking research is Matt Hudson. So welcome to the show, Matt. It's good to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Hello, Julia. Thanks for having me.
Well, this is a really important subject. Now, you are well known for the amount of research you do into mind and brain, that mind-body connection as well, and how one has a negative or positive effect on the other. But you're particularly focusing on today on your sleep, because I know you're going to take us through this research because it's really going to make a big difference on how people approach their sleep, the solutions that they're going to be able to come up with that are actually going to really impact how much sleep they're going to get and how they can help themselves, how maybe using their own tech is going to be really important because maybe they're not using it in the right way. But before we get into all of that, how did you get to where you are now with this, all the research you're doing into health, wellness, particularly into this sleep?
Well, as you know, my work began many, many moons ago with close to 30 years ago now, being born deaf. And that gave me an extra ability, if you would, of being able to spot those tiny little micro movements that to me appear as large as an elephant. But to those who use their ears, they can be quite invisible to them. And I wrote a book called The Saboteur Within, and I put a lot of case studies in there. And the main pushback I got for the book was the speed at which I was helping clients. It was absolutely unbelievable because I was sorting clients with lifelong conditions in less than in less than an hour. And it just wasn't believable. The problem was I'd done it. So there was my client, they're happy, I'm happy, but the readers pushed back, and therapists would come along and say, well, it's not possible, etc., etc. So I decided I had to go further. It's not magical, although, if you've been running around various doctors, medical institutions for 20, 30, 40 or 50 years, attempting to be well again, and they've all failed, or you've got small little pieces, then they've set back. If you're sat in front of me and an hour later you've got your life back, and 5 years, 10 years later, you still got your life back, how do I explain that to the mere mortals? I mean, it's mad. It does seem magical, but I managed to wrap a bit of science around it. And hence we've got split-second unlearning. So what I'm looking for are mini traumas, if you would, or not everybody's PTSD is doing the rounds. Everybody, oh, I was traumatized, etc., etc. But what I'm looking for is a specific type of trauma. It's emotional overwhelm, and in that split second, in that moment of emotional overwhelm, the mind creates an emotional memory image, a snapshot, clean coaster, Nelly, a snapshot of the event. And then that sits within the mind's eye, and it just sits there. So you're not conscious of it, but whenever you wander into any context that in any way looks remotely connected to this, your system fires up. So then with specifics, obviously we're chatting about sports people. So you can imagine that this is a first-time emotional event. So as they're coming through the ranks in their particular specialism, that as they come through the ranks, each event then becomes a first time, because you're on a higher pedestal. You see what I mean? So any one of those defeats is in danger of creating one of these. So then when you go to sleep at night, your system attempts to clear this. But what we end up with is hyper or hypoarousal.
Right.
Difficulty getting to sleep because the darn thing's there. So when your system should be calming down, it's actually arming up because there's a threat, there's a predator. I mean, kind of difficult to go to sleep if there's a hungry tiger sitting at the bottom of your bed.
Yeah.
Well, you see what I mean? So, but you're not aware of the tiger. You're just neurochemically aware that you're restless. So you toss and you turn, you try to get to sleep. But if we don't remove this, we're not removing the tiger from the foot of the bed.
Right.
And then that's point one. And point two then is when you do get to sleep. So some people manage to bypass it by grabbing a book. Now, of all of the books in here, there's a note. Let's have a look at that one. We'll grab that one. There's so many. We'll grab a book. You see, none of my books are here. I'm looking at everybody else's. So you grab a book and you read it and you read it and you read it until boom.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are guilty of that. And that's why sleep experts are telling you switch off the blue screen an hour or so before sleep. But the problem is the blue screen has replaced the book.
Yeah.
So if you've got an emotional memory image sitting in your mind's eye, you're more likely to be doing that death scroll until you're absolutely shattered. Boom. And it's to try and bypass this. However, you're not aware of it.
Yeah. And the thing is with this, if you are having like you're unaware of whatever trauma, whatever experience it is that's being triggered when you get into bed, maybe when you're doing all that doom scrolling, then there can be something on there that is actually triggering it even more without you realizing it.
More connected, yeah.
Yeah. So you can actually, you can switch the phone off and then you start getting this anxiety and this stress. So you think, okay, well, I didn't feel that while I was on my phone flicking through social media, whatever it may be. So you go back and watch it and then you feel better and then you switch it off and it starts again.
Yeah. So all that's happening is you're putting blockers in, if you would, to sort of stop this process coming in. And the more I'm researching, the more I'm discovering this is really a natural process. You have thoughts, nighttime comes, they come in, they're integrated, and you're clear for the next day.
Yeah.
But if there's an emotional overwhelm, then that sort of parks it differently. So it has to be processed, it has to be cleared in order for your system to continue.
Yeah.
I think an exciting part for me was also that if I mention fight and flight, everybody says, yeah, I know exactly what he's talking about. But lots of papers written on fight and flight. But what I'm particularly interested in is the freeze response. Because to explain it differently, if we look at fight and flight are off on, they're digital.
Okay.
A fight, we've had a fight, everything resets. You scare me, I run. Once I've outrun you, everything resets. Now, freeze, we have two sets for freeze. The initial response is freeze. What was that? So we'll move into an alert state with freeze. But then once we figure out what the sound was, our system then automatically moves to, can I kill it? Can I run from it? Should I stay perfectly still and hope it doesn't see me? So there's obviously, should I feign death, pass out, faint, etc., etc. But the freeze response for me is the one that I'm most keen on, because we witness people and they will actually tell us, they'll say, I just feel stuck. If you hear that word coming out of their mouth, they're telling you, I get to a certain point and a freeze response kicks in. but they're unable to articulate that, hence they feel stuck.
And how do you sort of get them to understand this sense of being stuck so that they can actually move forward from it?
Well, I explained basically how I've been explaining then, how the theory works. Yeah. And while we're chatting, I'm picking off various points, because there's a fixation point, which is, so long as I can see you, then I will survive. And then there's the aversion point. So long as I don't see you, then I'll survive. So when we're chatting, I'm tracking. And I'm tracking for those splits. That's why it's called split second, because your access of an emotional memory image is rapid.
Yeah.
So when we're chatting, I'm looking for fixation and avoidance. Bum, bum, bum.
And then it's that interruption of that you go through, isn't it?
We bring a conscious interruption into it.
Yeah.
I message, I'm going to be really cheeky here. I'm going to step off here. I'm going to look into WhatsApp, because I messaged something yesterday and I thought, oh, I'll have to write that down.
Yeah.
Because I liked it. Now and again, when you come out with something and you thought, oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So
you can make a note.
I made a note, and it's in here, and it was around sleep. Now, what did I say? Oh, I probably said that much. I wrote quite a bit down. But we were looking. I think that's right. I'm not in that one. I'm in the other one. That's the other thing. There's so many places to put information nowadays. That's it.
The key is remembering exactly where you've put everything.
Yeah. So I said, sleep is a new trend. So many people suffering from poor sleep. But I said, it remains consciously elusive, yet subconsciously simple.
Yeah.
That's why I wrote it down.
Yeah, and that's kind of the missing link, because myself, I've suffered with sleep problems for ages. And you did, when I came and studied under you, you actually did a little bit of your stuff on me, and it did actually work. It took a couple of days, but it actually worked, and my sleep has been better since.
Since we're on the call, if you notice, when you're editing this and you go back, you'll be able to actually see for how long you've been running that emotional memory image, because you accessed it while we were chatting.
This is scary talking to you, because I'm very aware of what's happening to me. But
been there for a long time. And then one of the challenges, because things, because I've had it for years, right? But the thing is, change is only that moment away. And I think that's how the type of clients I get are the ones that have just had enough. I'm putting myself in the hot seat. Sort me.
Yeah.
So then money's no object. It's about quality of life. It's about time wasted chasing your tail.
Well, this is the thing. Very often people get to that, they don't do anything when the little signs.
You just checked it again then.
Yeah, they wait till catastrophe.
You just checked it again then. So we might have to do a tweak while we're on the call.
Oh Lord, there's too much to sort out with me in the time we have.
Just checked it again, and it's outside of your awareness. You can't help it. How cool is that?
But this is a great example of how easy it is, how you notice things that I wouldn't notice where I'm checking or what I'm doing. Obviously I'm focused on this interview, but but what do you find? So going back to your research, I mean, I was looking. I read a little bit of the paper that you'd written on this, on the article, and it's sort of anywhere sort of interesting between the age. Am I correct? The age between 18 and like about 40, where which is quite a big group of people that start struggling with this. What did you find was behind that, or the reason for that particular age range?
Well, I think the only reason for that age range is work. It's everything's sort of driven around economy, isn't it? So
yeah.
So that's really where you're looking. But if if I was working with a client who wants to lose weight, so wants to get slim, back in the day, they were my bread and butter clients. So I'd ask them about when, did they feel they let themselves down, right? So they'd start their diet on a Monday, because Monday is the traditional day to start a diet, and pick out all weekend long. Monday comes, they're sick of all of their takeaways and their junk food. It's today I begin. Then it gets around Wednesday or Thursday, they break a fingernail, whatever, and suddenly they're munching 10 liters of Ben and Jerry. And they say, oh, I was okay up until Wednesday or Thursday. Now, that sounds logical and plausible.
Yeah.
So what I always do is, because I think in systems, right? So let's just follow the logic, right? The event happened Wednesday or Thursday. Then I'll say, what time were you eating your Ben and Jerry's? The ice cream. And I say, oh, about 8, 9 o'clock in the evening. I said, wow. Which supermarket or shop did you attend around 8 o'clock to go buy it? And then they look at me confused. I say, what's the matter? I said, well, I didn't go to the super. I said, oh, well, where did you find the Ben and Jerry's? Oh, I had it in my freezer. Ah, and when did you purchase the Ben and Jerry's? On Saturday. So why on earth would we work at the sharp end on Wednesday when the problem was on Saturday?
Right.
You see what I mean?
So you then have to connect with what was happening on that Saturday?
Connect the Saturday, clear the Saturday problem first.
Right.
You see what I mean? Because something, now you're understanding how hypnosis works. Life is a trance. Her system has thought, she isn't a psychopath. Her system knows on Monday, I am eliminating all sugars and processed foods. I'm stopping on Monday. Her system on Saturday then says, but by Wednesday, you'll need a bit of a pickup. So she purchases said items, puts them in. Can you see what I mean? It's all hypnotic. If we get ahead of that she isn't in that aisle in the supermarket. She may not even choose to use the supermarket if we get ahead of the trance.
Right. So that being said, in terms of everything else in our life, it's really, we're just completely hypnotized.
Yeah.
Triggered by a specific event somewhere in time.
We're a fantastic. The brain is very good at getting us from A to B. Yeah, it'll get us to stop. It'll get us to reverse. But basically, it's driven by emotions.
Right.
Now, where next?
So when it comes to sleep in particular, what have you noticed tends to be, I mean, is there a specific emotion that tends to drive sleep issues? Or could it be anything that really comes on a person by person basis?
See, well,
are there sort of specific sort of behaviors or patterns that you've noticed with people who are struggling with sleep?
No, well, what I look at is basically, is there an EMI present?
Right.
It's that simple. Is there an emotional memory image present? Now, because we're chatting about this, and because obviously we're live, why not? We edit it out if you wish. But if you were to consider for yourself for a moment, now you're looking at the screen. We're in the now, yeah.
Yeah.
Eye line, right? Now, I'll ask you a question, and in a second, if you just for fun, just watch this, okay?
Okay.
Right, now let's just, because we're on a computer, I need to go, is it this way? No, I just want to scan your eyes. Boop. No, can you, are you not able to look at the screen at the same time? Is it the way this is?
I can see you moving.
right? But I'm not what your eyes don't seem to be tracing yet, which is interesting. So what I look at then is if we think about whatever it was that is triggering poor sleep for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you'll notice at the moment, because we're touching on the subject itself, your system is now attempting to keep your eyes locked on me. Now, I didn't ask you to lock your eyes, but it's just easier. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, as soon as we change subjects, so we'll chat about anything else, right? You can have your eyes back. Yeah. And the reason being is because our system says this has kept us alive. So therefore, we need to keep it. Which sounds nutty, but it also, it supports our survival.
Yeah.
Remember that the freeze response is built into a survival mechanism. So that's why we have to be quite sneaky when popping these out, because there's different connections to them. So we've got to sort of tease them out, ease them out, so that the client gets, and a relief comes.
Yeah.
So it's really, there's a lot more understanding gone into what creates an emotional memory image and what's in it. But for sleep specific though, I'm wearing a Fitbit, and people say, "Oh, a Fitbit." There's so many. That's not very professional. There's so many better gadgets on the market, etc. Why a Fitbit? Well, I wear a Fitbit because of the battery life.
Right.
You can get about 10 days out of a charge, and the reason being that my data is being collected by Fitbit, but it's then being launched up into the heavens,
Mm-hmm.
and it's landing at a laboratory in Belgium, which then translates that data into gold standard sleep data.
Okay.
And then it gets interesting, because we can take that gold standard data and then we can coach our clients. And that's when it's really cool for the modern world we're in. Because once upon a time, we'd say to a client, go do this, this, and this. See you next time. Next time turns up. Did you do this, this, and this? Because your performance hasn't improved. Oh, well, I tried. Or this was difficult. Or blah, blah, blah. Yep. I was at a barbecue with the weekend. It started Thursday, finished Monday. I missed it all. And you think, fair enough. But now we get to monitor it all. All of those, the orange days were off days. I had a bit of a bug. And the green, light green and dark green, fab days where you got up, had an amazing sleep, and there we are during the day. The orange again are stress points. And then what I do is, so it's monitoring my energy use.
Ah, right, because that's really important, isn't it?
Positive and negative energy use. So then I'm able to have a look and figure out, what was I doing then? Or who was I with? Or you see what I mean? What was I eating? What did I do? All of that is feeding me consciousness. So as I'm becoming more conscious of a subconscious day of the trance of my life, I'm able to then intercede. And how do I do that? I use the mind reset. That's that one on the top, the mind reset. And mind reset gives me a fast reset setting, which basically interrupts it in less than 30 seconds.
So you use your mind reset sort of when you're having those low energy points?
When it's in orange.
Right, okay.
Basically, when I mightn't be aware of it, so I'm sitting here and I'm okay. But nobody is aware of the thoughts that they're currently not thinking about. You see what I mean? There's so much to being human. There's so many thoughts. Yesterday is just a thought away. Yeah, exactly. That little sneak into yesterday there. So there's all of that happening, and it's all momentary. Well, this device captures every every piece of energy that's given out by our heart. It's monitoring, it's capturing, and that's why we need the Fitbit, because it's so dependent on minute by minute data. But it's super exciting, because then we can see how you approach the evenings. You see what I mean? We can see, well, maybe what time it looks like you're eating about 8 o'clock at night. Oh, I am, but I don't eat after 8. Well, there's still some orange around midnight, so maybe you need to stop eating at 7. You see what I mean? We can be really for the individual.
Yeah, so this is actually gives you so much more detail, because obviously lots of people have lots of tech.
Yeah.
And there's tech that tells them how many hours sleep they got, or whether they had a restless night, but it's not really giving you, unless you know how to translate that data, it's not really going to be of any great help to you. So what yours is doing is giving you what's happening throughout their whole day that can possibly create a story, if you like, so that when they get to that time when they need to go to sleep, you can then, as a consultant, and even help them to understand what their patterns are throughout each day, and when to take those moments and just interrupt, I guess, that emotional memory image, that experience, or whatever it is that's going on that's triggering something.
So Professor Berkman's he'd used the app with athletes. I think they may have been. I think with the show jumper. The Belgian squad. Now they were guaranteed, they should have gotten gold. I think they got silver. But when the rider came to it was the first jump.
Yeah.
And there was a fault on the first, and that cost them the gold. And Daniel was telling me that Professor Berkman, he told me, he said, we caught that in the rider. The riders momentarily doubted, and they caught it here on the app, and the horse obviously caught it instantly as well. So it was a fault. And I said, oh, Daniel, if only the rider had used fast reset before getting on the horse, we could have cleared the mental images. And that's one of the challenges for sports professionals, is we'd suggest they use the sleep reset. We've got a 10-day program within the app. Sleep reset for 10 days before the event. That way, we're helping to clear any of these. Oh, who'll be turning up? What will the weather be like? Will I manage? All of the doubty things that can creep in for 10 days before we're clearing. And then on the morning of the event, or just minutes before the event, do a fast reset. And what we were able to show is that, I'll put you back on there, if a professional gets 7 green days in a row like that, it correlates to a better performance on the day.
Yeah.
So they'll have optimum energy on the day of the event. So you can see where from your side, when you work with athletes, or retired, and they just want to be in optimum.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting you talk about athletes and sleep. I was at a training day, because obviously Wimbledon's coming up soon, and sleep recovery is going to be a big thing moving forward, I think. But sleep is one of the things that they were talking about. But it's how, it's all very well saying to an athlete, you just need to get more sleep, but it's how do they do that if they've got a trigger, if they've got an emotional memory image that's interrupting that. But something like this is really going to help nip it in the bud very early on.
Well, we're putting them in control of, like I said, sleep is unconscious.
Yeah.
Nobody knows at what point they're going to sleep. Even if you've got a good bedtime, that the last blink is unconscious.
Yeah.
So then if we can give you the tools to interrupt that trance, to make the unconscious, the below consciousness, to raise it up so you say, there it is. If we can clear that, then you have control again. And it's wonderful just watching the fun thing. I got the back end data, and it just shows all of my clients, and I can pop in and just watching. Got a young chap over in Belgium at the minute. It's incredible, his sleep scores and his energy. But obviously he's a young man. But you think, well, why can't we have that? And we can.
Yeah.
Some retraining people, and because everything's digital, it's just a ping. I can just have a look and say, oh, what were you up to yesterday? Ping it, and they're like, oh, he's watching me. But the beauty of it is, I'm not bothered. Yeah.
It's not affecting you.
You're paying me to help you. And I'm just pointing out, and you know what you did. One of the guys because you definitely hit orange if you have alcohol, and I said, it looks like you had alcohol on Wednesday. He went, no, I didn't. And he had a Google tracker as well, so he knew where. So he said, right, we'll put Google on. I said, go on then. And this guy, he lives in Portugal, so we never meet. So we're on Skype, like he puts Google tracker on, and I'm literally watching him like this, and he's on the, and then he goes, he says, yeah, I had one. I said, there you go, thank you very much. And
they'll be employing you in government soon to watch everybody.
It's just fun. You see, because we make it lighthearted and I tease them and say, oh yeah, boogie. It becomes, and if they're a couple, goodness me, how competitive it gets.
Yeah.
They wake up in the morning, Lisa will tell you, my wife, we wake up in the morning and the first thing I do, first thing, we've woke up now, I'm brushing your teeth. How did I sleep? So sync my Fitbit, right? Come on, sync, not bothered, sync. And then straight into this one. And I go, how did I sleep? What did I get for sleep? It's the 29th. Oh, goodness me. I'm on 92. I started on 100. I've dropped the 92. There you go. No. Actually, Julia, isn't that interesting? Because I can see, I'm thinking, that'll have been the shower. You see? Because I've actually got the time limit there. So this is us now in real time wearing green. So I'm having fun here. Isn't that good? I'm having fun. So that's the shower I had earlier.
Oh, right.
So it's pinpointing everything we're doing.
And that's the key. It's those little details that are really important.
The tiny details, but if we pay attention to the small stuff, the big stuff sorts itself.
Yeah. Devil's in the detail, as they say.
Yeah. So that's my sleep piece in a nutshell. And then obviously once we've got that once people get into that routine, well, it's like I had a CEO on here last night, CEO, and I said, look, he's 34 years old, he's overweight, and I let them run for a month for free, tested for a month, and then in a month, because he's thinking, he sleeps, his Fitbit says, I get 8 hours a night, so that's good and all of that. So I said, really? So he wears all of our equipment. 1 month later, we have a come to Jesus moment. And then I said, right, you're doing about 35% on average sleep score. Now, for a normal person, that's sleeping 8 hours and getting the recovery, an average sleep score should be 50%. It really is that simple. That's the numbers. So for his age, etc., I said, you're heading into chronic disease.
And he wasn't even aware of it?
Wasn't blissfully unaware. Because who is? Everybody's got some sort of gadget. I mean, I'm trying a new one at the minute, a ring, just to see how they compare, etc. But they haven't got the memory capacity, the battery life of Fitbit. So people have various gadgets. They wake up in the morning, or they even look at the clock and say, I had 8 hours. So long as I'm getting my 8 hours, I must be okay.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not the information at all. If you went to your GP and said, how do you sleep? If you did, and you say, about 8 hours, everybody says, yeah, and we roll on. But it's subconscious. You're not aware really of how much real recovery you're getting. And that's what we're looking at, is recovery data. I aim to get all of my clients on 60% plus. Why? Well, if you're on 50% recovery, that's your average. Well done. If you're on 60% plus, that leads to extra benefits in your health and anti-aging, more flexibility. Why? Because if you've got 60% plus, when you're sleeping, it's better oxygenation. So if your system's getting better oxygen when you're sleeping, there's going to be less inflammation. Less inflammation, less pain, exactly, off we go.
So I mean, like, you get so many people who wake up and they always complain, I wake up and I'm in such pain when I wake up. This can be a reason for it.
So, well, one of my clients, fascinating. She'd gone to relaxation class, guided visualization, whatever. And she goes every Thursday. And after that 1 hour relaxation, all of her chronic pain vanishes for about 3 hours.
Yeah.
So, well, wow. So then I come up with a different hypothesis. So if 1 hour can give her 3 hours of flexibility, how come 8 hours of sleep cannot deliver the same thing? Does it make sense? Because so basically she should be disease-free if she has 8 hours sleep, because 3 times that she'd be back in bed again. So what's going on in sleep that isn't going on in a guided meditation? Voila. If she's got an emotional memory image in her sleep, so she's waking up and her body is inflamed because she's been running from a tiger all night.
Yeah.
So she wakes up in pain because her system is flooded with cortisol and inflammation. All of those neurotoxins are eroding her system. And then you can see where it starts to get even spookier and more exciting with things like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, all of those different conditions where they're scratching their heads still and wondering, but we're endeavoring to go into the subconscious without really understanding how a mind works. Because I look at the mind, not the brain.
Yeah, because I think people get very confused, don't they, with that? They clump the two together, but they work together, but separately.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people who want to be hard facts, solid on the ground. It's physical, but the more you look at it, I mean, even DNA, DNA. There's we found it. DNA is an expression. So, which parts of your DNA are expressed? Well, that's going to come down to how does your system perceive the information in the environment. It's fascinating.
Yeah, because it's if you perceive an environment as dangerous, like you said, or there's negative things, you're constantly feeling that threat, that is feeding back the information to your brain, and your brain is then sending messages to the rest of your body to respond in accordance with that.
And that's how, to touch on, I mean, probably because we're chatting sleep as well, but another thing for sports females, since we're chatting emotional memory images, is the menstrual cycle. Dysmenorrhea or period pains. And what I did was we did a little study. I can't remember the stats. It was about 70% of the group we were able to impact. So these were women who had been having periods for more than 10 years and having specific period cramps, troubles, etc., etc. And we locate the intervention, cleared the AMI, and their period pain stopped. Now, there was one particular lady in the study who was about 50 years old, which was strange for me because I thought she must have had menopause. And she said, "Oh, I have terrible periods." So we worked with it in a session, and it took 2 months for her to come back to us, because when she came back to us, she said, well, 2 days later, after the session, she'd gone to Greece on holiday, and without warning, she'd had a period and made a mess of her bed.
Oh dear.
50 years old, oh dear. Then she was thinking, well, how could that have been? It couldn't have been Hudson, because that was only 2 days ago. It must have been the fact that she was in Greece on holiday. First time in her life, but there you go. And then a month later, she's at home, and without warning, she had a period. Oh dear, made a mess of her own bed. Again, no warning, no pain, nothing. Then she messaged back and said, I concede you've done something. It's like, wow, even when we help clients, they'll arm wrestle us for the success of it. So
well, I think people are so used to going to the doctor, getting a prescription, being told this is the problem, but actually what they're doing is they're just talking about symptoms. They're not actually getting to the root cause. And this is why people stay locked in poor health, poor sleep, poor health, poor fitness, poor performance, whether it's in sport, business, life, whatever it may be, because the causes have not been, they've not disconnected from the cause, neurologically disconnected from that cause.
And I think, sadly, the biggest challenge for the client is they want to be heard, but the professional will listen. Well, if you're the client and you want to be heard, and the professional is listening, neither one of you are in the right modality to sort the problem. Because you need to be able to see what's happening non-verbally. And as Lisa chuckled yesterday, we were having a coffee in Durham, and there was a lady came past with a little wheelchair trolley mobility thing. So we got chatting. She's a bit upset about X, Y, and Z. And she tells me, that she's just running around in circles. I said, that's interesting. I said, I bet you end up dizzy. She says, I'm all of a spin. I said, what would happen if you went round in squares? And she looked at me like I'm weird. I said, well, the thing is, every time, I said, because Lisa does this, honestly, she'll tell you. So if you went round in squares, every time you announce that you've turned a corner, well, then you wouldn't be able to look back on that because it's round the bend. And she said, that makes sense. I said, so now that you think about what's gone on as being around the corner, and now that you've turned that corner, obviously, because you're on 4 little wheels there, I said, what are you noticing? And she grinned from ear to ear. And she said, something shifted. I said, yeah, well, I used to charge for that. I said, but would you like a coffee while you're here? Right, so it's just a fun thing. It's a nice thing to do to a passerby. And then when we walked up, later, Lisa chuckles at me and she says, whenever your hands are moving, you're working. And I said, interesting. Get you thinking.
That's it. And it's that making them think, and it's also distracting them from whatever it was that they thought the problem was. But you're doing it with a bit of laugh, bit of humor, and confusing them completely.
Yeah, and if you view what I just did when I was chatting, because I'm in her mental space, while I'm chatting, my hands are redirecting and re-sculpting how her mind is interacting. So I've mapped her on spinning, which is what she was in. So now I've picked up her non-verbal communication to herself. And then I've translated it into a square and shifted the process and popped it in, checked it was okay, then got a chuckling, which welds the experience. Off she goes. Remember, they're all first time emotional experiences. So all I do is find what strategy she's running, which is a poor one, upgrade the strategy, and then weld it in there with a bit of humor.
Yeah.
Simple, really.
Simple for you.
when you know what you're doing.
When you know what you're doing, yeah. So in terms of, if people are sort of struggling now and they're, they say, well, it's too much, or, if they don't start resolving these problems, particularly when it comes to their sleep, which the sleep and the mind are all connected, what is the outlook for them? Because this is not a phenomenon that's getting any better, at the moment.
The thing is, this isn't new. I mean, the ancient Greeks had the same problems. This is not new. So the challenge really is, are you prepared to live a conscious life? Are you prepared to break that trance and do something about it? And if you are, wonderful. We can begin. And it doesn't need to cost the earth, because I mean, a Fitbit, probably 60, 70 pounds, something like that. And then we'll hook you into the 2 apps, then off you go. You really, for probably £400 or something, you're off. Yeah. And that's without me having to, that's just your kids, you're off. Now you think, well, wow, now, basic instructions, off you go. And then you can adjust. So if you're in orange from 6 in the evening till 2 in the morning, clearly you're doing something. So stop doing it. Do something else. So can you see what I mean? It's that simple. One of my doctor friends was on the call a couple of days ago, and she said, well, I'm in green a lot. What do I do? I said, well done. We're not looking for the green stuff. She said, well, how do I use the fast reset? I said, you use the fast reset when you're in the orange zone, and within 15 minutes, 80% of our users in the study, within 15 minutes of using fast reset, their energy's recalibrated. So how cool. And the beauty of it is, see, we remove one of these that you might have had for years, right? We clear it. That might be the only ruffle in your mind that's created that restless pillow. It might just be just that one. So we've cleared it. And now, can you see what I mean? So it's, with me, it's never a lifelong therapy neither. We're just looking for that stone in your shoe.
And that's the beauty of it. It can be done very quickly, and it's not like endless amounts of therapy and testing and drug taking. It's very, very simple and very quick.
Your system is designed cradle to grave. And the thing is, there's so many people want to cling to the scientific data. I love the scientific method. Yeah. If I was
this is it. You've done all your research. The science is there. It's backed it all up. And of course, on your website, you've got so many academic papers and articles and everything to show that you've gone through that process.
But the challenge that you're looking at is, at the end of the day, we've got no further than Eastern medicine has always been.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, all we're doing now is attempting to match what the ancients have told us all along. Which is fascinating. Information. I mean, fair enough, nowadays we have more neurotoxins, and the environment. I mean, goodness me, bye sunshine in the UK, according to you.
Let's turn the sun down. That'll be clever.
I'm chuckling the fact that they're announcing it. I mean,
You know,
we've had it for years, but there you go. I digress. But just looking at how can we help people, and this was the thing. It was Lisa put me onto it, which was how do we help more people?
Yeah.
See, if I'm in a training room and I'm helping a few 20, 30, 40 people, and they can go out there, some of them pick up what I was teaching, they can help more, but it's not en masse. So when we developed the Mind Reset app, I mean, I'm wrong now, but last time I looked, it was about months ago, and we'd had over 70,000 client sessions, well over that now. But so I couldn't work with that amount of clients, and yet we've helped so many people, and they're helping themselves. And I think that's really where I'm at, not being there as a prop, as a for your client, but really just say, look, there's the tools. That's how it works. Go live your life. You see, and I think that for me, it really is how to be human.
Yeah.
Because there's a vulnerability within all of us, which is when we have to ask for help. Now, that's hardwired into our survival mechanism. And that's why it's called autonomy. And we need autonomy. We need to be able to decide for ourselves, to look after ourselves. And if you're having a tough time of things, eventually you'll get to near breaking point, and then you reach out. Or sadly, some people don't reach out and take their own lives or whatever. But that's because of autonomy. Our system says, if I open up, I'll appear vulnerable, and therefore I may die or be, kicked out of the group, etc., from an evolutionary perspective. But with this, we don't take any person. For all of this, we take no personal data. So you say, well, how do you know this, and this? Well, that's all yours.
Yeah.
On the sleep side, that my clients, because of my clients, I have their data, but ordinary users can go on there and we don't have any data. That so you can really genuinely do it all on your own.
Yeah, because I think that's the problem, and particularly those who are sort of in leadership positions, especially, or high profile, even more so, not wanting to be seen to be weak, not wanting to go out there, even though they may know that there's a problem they need help with. It's much harder for them to go out there and seek help, because what happens if it gets out into the public sphere? What happens if my staff or the people in my peer group, will that affect them doing business with me, so on and so forth? So it's really important to have these different ways that they can actually go in and privately get help, and then if they want to explore further help professionally or seek a mentor or somebody to then support them through that, but having those steps that that they keep, because the thing is they want to be able to keep control of their information, what the public, what the people around them hear and see and think of them. But at the same time, they still need to be able to get help, because very often those people, actually, the higher the performers, the more leadership position they are, they're even more in some ways susceptible to mental health issues and health problems, because they're not going out and they're not proactively seeking help.
As one of my clients who's on TV every day, everybody knows the client, and he interviews other professionals, and he told me that usually before an interview he will spend days researching the person, so he's on spot. So I got him onto Mind Reset, and he feeds back a week later. He'd had an interview with such and such, and so it was on the TV. In years to come, I'll put it in the book somewhere, right? But it was on TV, etc. And And he said for the first time in his professional career, he did not do any research. He said it was absolutely amazing. I was just there in the moment. And for me, he said it was the best interview he felt professionally he'd ever given. And he said, and I can only put it down to that daft app of yours. And so, it's getting out there, and it just, obviously, with some celebrities and so, we can't shout about it. But the good news is, on the grapevine, it's coming along. And it's there, it's on App Store. So, it's not like a professional that has to ask my permission or anything. They can just download it, give it to your client and play with it. Yeah. And I think that's the hardest thing, is playing. Because the more professional somebody gets, they forget about playing. And playing is really key here, because we engage curiosity to utilize this app. So if you bring skepticism, it'll probably not work for you.
You've got to keep an open mind with it.
It's the dopamine. You see, we need that chemical flexibility. And apart from that, that's it.
Yeah. So what's the where, if they want to look for it?
Just on Google or Google Play Store or Apple, the App Store, and you just put Mind Reset.
Mind Reset, and that will come up. And then they do the little Mind Reset other thing that to interrupt. Is that a separate thing, or is it all involved in
it's in the fast reset.
The fast reset, that's it.
Yeah, because we've got various programs in here. The sleeplessness, obviously. We've got a sports program in there. And again, for sports anxiety, performance anxiety, exam anxiety, trauma anxiety, stress, depression, fatigue, and the fast reset. So they're all in there.
But they need to also have this Fitbit as well.
The Fitbit is if they're going to do it's for the sleep program specific.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but otherwise, it's there, and I think for me, it's exciting that it's all accessible nowadays.
Yeah. I think that's the great thing now about, technology moving on so fast, that all these things are going to come a lot easier for people to sort of manage and control their own health and fitness without, especially without the huge financial outlay, which, some people would still need that one-to-one connection, but for some, they'll still be able to get help.
Still, that's bread and butter, really. So I still have my one-to-one clients, which is fun. Yeah, because it keeps my tools sharp. But nudging them, cajoling them towards the digital age. I'm just chuckling because my boys are saying, this is my dad chatting. Yeah, yes, computers have made it. Yeah, it took a while for me because I do very much prefer your one-to-one, in human, face-to-face, coffees, teas, and chats. Yeah. But sort of we are adapting to this modality. But for me, I'd still rather sit around the table and have a chat.
Yeah.
Wellness is here. It does. Saves the planet, and obviously it allows people who we'll never meet, because obviously if the recording goes on to internet, there's people we'll never meet, but we might get an opportunity to help them, to change their lives. And
that's the key. And I think more than ever, people just need small little things that they can do and just feel like they're back in control of their own life again, and just get themselves healthier. Because, I always say there's no better asset than your health and wellness. That's the thing you should be focusing on, or taking a priority above anything else. But integrating it in terms of mind and body, rather than just having each thing as separate little parts. It all integrates, it all comes together. We're all connected. And so you've got to take a very, very holistic approach when it comes to all things health and wellness.
Yeah.
So just to wind this up, what are your quick fire top 5 tips for better sleep and steps people should be taking?
So, well, no, top 5. See, well, number 1, get mind reset. Number 2, use it. Yeah. Use the sleep setting around 8 o'clock of the evening. Right? That's when our system's moving towards bedtime anyway. Right? Why? Because if you're having problems, you'll have one of these. It will clear your mind. If you do that, then all of the other stuff which is recommended, don't have a glass of water, don't drink after 7 in the evening, don't eat after 7, all of that will come true.
Mm-hmm.
But first and foremost, make sure that your mind's eye is clear in order for you to go to sleep. And basically, I mean, I've stopped eating after 7 in the evening now. It's nuts, but if you eat after that, what happens is your system is still munching. So for the first, from like midnight till 2 or 3 in the morning, your system's still working on that fuel source. So if you can dial back, they say before 8. For me, it's around 7 because 8 I was still in that range because I could monitor it.
Mm-hmm.
So once you start monitoring, you can see how it works for you. So for me, 7 o'clock's my deadline, and it guarantees I have green. So it guarantees that my system isn't utilizing sleep time, restoration time, by having to munch up food that should have been by long into the system. So that's a very simple one. And also make sure you're hydrated. Make sure you do have that water. The reason being, from another side, from a good source, a doctor friend of mine, one of the reasons he reckons that a lot of heart attacks happen at night is because we're dehydrated.
Right.
So your system goes into repair, but you're dehydrated, so our blood is thicker.
I see. Yeah, that's a really important point.
So keep hydrated.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, brilliant, Matt. Well, look, I've learned an awful lot, and I'm going to get that app, download it, and try it out before I go to sleep tonight. And I've put some links in the show notes. So anyone wants to find out a little bit more about Matt, get in touch with him. There's some links in the show notes for you to do that. But for now, look, Matt, this has been really interesting, eye-opening. And I know lots of people are going to have a very different perspective on how they can improve their sleep and what could be blocking them from that. But for now, I really want to thank you for joining me and taking time out of your busy schedule, because I know how busy you are. And thank you for joining me today. And thank everybody else for listening in. I hope you've been inspired and are now going to go forward with much better sleep, much better health and fitness. So for today, I'd like to thank everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. And
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Unleash Your Inner Athlete. You're clearly a very loyal listener and enjoying the content because you stayed all the way to the end, and that means so much to us here, as I love to see that you are enjoying the content we're bringing to you. And I want to be able to grow the channel more, bring you more fantastic guests, and give you more quality information that are going to help you maintain that quality of life you desire and keep you at peak performance. But in order to do that, I do need to ask one little favour, and that is, could you please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell? Because as the channel grows and we bring you more episodes, I want you to be the very first to get each episode and listen to that episode before anybody else can, as soon as it drops. So just do me that one favour, hit the notification bell, subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you next time here at Unleash Your Inner Athlete. Thank you so much for joining us.